I think a lot of people read into the Browns' messaging when naming Joe the starter yesterday, and we didn't pick up on it. And then we kind of have picked up on it since. That people took it as because they named him the Week 1 starter, that meant he's guaranteed for nothing after. And Joe was actually asked about that today when he met with the media for the first time as a Browns starting quarterback.
Well, we all know how that works. I mean, that's everybody in the league, But it's not really my job to look at it in that way. It's just to kind of go out there and play my game, kind of like I've been doing, all training camp, and not worrying about all that stuff. Just going out there and playing my game and being the best I can.
Is it reading too much in to suggest that when the Browns said Week 1 quarterback, that Joe is somehow week to week?
I don't think he's week to week, but I do think that the wording was intentional there. Now, it would have been so bad if they just said he's our starting quarterback. No, because I think everyone knows that there's a time limit on the Joe Flacco experience here. Mm-hmm. You can't say week to week in general. That's not great. But
unless you're describing injuries, and then you go day to day, and then you just never update.
I mean, even Joe Flacco's not an idiot. He knows how this goes. He has the job as long as he either wins or gets injured. If he starts to lose at an extremely high rate, or he can't stay healthy, he doesn't have the job anymore. And there's not a Browns fan out there that realistically expects him to have the job for all 17 games.
So I don't think he's week to week, but I think if any quarterback in the NFL, he's as close to week as exists.
I mean, all right, let's think about it. And I'm sure we'll talk about Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones coming up here in quick hits in a second. But when it comes to Daniel Jones and that job, is that the job where he has it for the whole entire season and that's the understood notion? Or is that the job where he's got it until he starts to lose or gets injured?
I think he has much more of a grip on that job because I don't think Anthony Richardson losing the starting battle is the sign that they would rather set their own hair on fire than go to Anthony Richardson unless injury happens.
So I agree with that. And so,
but Tyler Shuck in New Orleans, they're going to go to Spencer Rattler if Tyler has a couple bad weeks. I don't think anyone's clamoring for that. They've tried Spencer Rattler. There's a reason they drafted Tyler Shuck.
Well, Spencer Rattler does absolutely nothing for you. At least with Shuck, you're like, maybe it'll get better than what it is. Mm-hmm. But the difference here is with Joe Flacco, 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then we're just kind of reassessing. I would say after the first 4 weeks, you really reassess where you're at, though. You give them the first 4 games, and then you really reassess, and then you go from there.
I think it totally depends on what those first 4, 6, 8 weeks. If you start 0-4, yeah, it's 4 weeks in. If you start 2-2 and then lose 2 games after it, it starts week 6. I think Joe just better not stack losses. Stack wins. You can have a win and then a loss. But the second you lose 2 straight games, he becomes absolutely week to week very quickly this season.
I mean, he could go, and I don't expect this to happen, obviously, because we've seen him at practice, but he can go 0-3 and have like the worst passer rating in the NFL, turn the ball over a bunch, and I still think he gets that 4th week. NFL coaches always work in the quarter polls, where we don't have 16 games, we have 17 games now, but they break it off into 4 chunks of 4 games is how it typically works. I think he's got the first 4 games, and then it's a reassessment.
I do think it's interesting that, Mary Kay was on with the Midday Boys today, and one of the things she said is, that means Joe's job for right now. It's really hard-pressed to think of a time in the last 6 years where we've gone at 7 years, really, where we're back to where we were in kind of the mid-teens of the 2000 teens, where it was like, I think RG3 is going to start a couple games, and then maybe you'll get, I think it was McCown, and then I think Kessler maybe. It's been a long time since we've been here, and I think that's added to make it really hard. What's made it really hard about just trying to assess where the Browns are going to go this year?
Fun aside on that RG3, I remember at the time we did the website did everyone put out how many games you think RG3 will start that season, and I was like, I'm going to put 17. And I was like, but everyone else is going to put 17. I was like, screw it, I'm putting 17. I was the only person to put 17. It wasn't even close. Everyone else had 6, 7, 9, and there was me. 16 at the time. It was a 16-game season, and I put 16 just absolutely way wrong.
You and I yesterday talking the Trey Hendrickson thing, I thought it was the Browns sniffing around to see if they could dumpster dive. I can't remember exactly what your take on the Trey Hendrickson report was by Jordan Schultz.
It was basically nothing. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I didn't love the idea that everyone was defaulting to, the Browns are just doing due diligence. They check in on everyone. Well, all right, well, don't put the Browns with every team then if that's the case. If they really check in with everyone, because I just don't think that's, although it might be true, they investigate a lot, but then can't you put every team in that bucket?
I just think what's interesting about it is, one, I think you're spot on. I would be very hard-pressed to find a Browns-Bengals trade that doesn't involve some sort of Cleveland Browns tax, because Mike Brown seems to be a bitter old man who remembers how they treated Pappy back in the late 60s, even though, because of that treatment, the man's now a billionaire.
If only I could be so lucky.
But I digress. That's for his thing to work out or not work out before.
I think he's decided he's not going to work it out.
The sweet by and by comes from Mike Brown, but who looks a lot like Emperor Palpatine, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not even a big fan of the of where they took the Palpatine thing, but if you look at like the original trilogy,
which one's the Emperor?
He's the one in the robe in the first trilogy that goes, yeah. What is it? Let the hate flow.
Oh, this is the meanest thing you could have ever said. I forgot about this guy.
Okay.
That's as
I don't
mean
mean it's like
as
a
it gets.
1 for 1. I just mean he's Palpatine adjacent.
The guy that looks like he has his contacts in for like 60 days without ever taking them out. Like his eyes are just completely red.
Yeah.
And they made this guy like the ugliest human on planet Earth. The oldest, ugliest
that's
human.
Your perception of it. I'm not saying Mike Brown's the ugliest man on the planet. I'm just saying he looks like Emperor Palpatine, and then you can make the judgment however you go.
Did Star Wars fans just think that he was like stoned all the time, or what happened with Emperor Palpatine?
That is very strong with the dark side of the Force.
Is that what that was? Yeah,
that's what
My
happens.
goodness.
You give into the dark side, and look at what happens
My
to your
goodness.
person.
That is the
Same
meanest.
thing.
That is the meanest comp you can give someone. I mean, that's not
It's
even
not
close.
a nice comp, but I don't think it's the meanest comp.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Probably can do meaner than that.
I don't know that it gets much meaner.
I probably have done meaner than that. They're both old. They're both wrinkly. They both have some sort of skin disorder. That's where the comp is coming from. It's not. I'm just drowning. I'm just drowning here. I'm just wasting away in quicksand trying to save this. You're right, but my point is, every time I see Mike Brown talk, he even kind of sounds like Palpatine. Okay, I'm not making it any better.
Palpatine.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't go something dark side, but he kind of, lower old man voice. Listen, the point is, Mike Brown is unhinged with the way he's treating Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, okay.
And I've been a little bit annoyed at like the reports that are like, the Bengals had an offer for a second round pick and a player, and they've softened their stance on this, and so maybe they're willing to take a first rounder. It's like, he's over 30. He's in the last year of his guaranteed deal. Oh, by the way, did I mention he's over 30? Mm-hmm. And then you have to pay him. Like, what value is there really for Trey Hendrickson? And then James Rapine joined the Morning Boys today and set what I would say is a exhaustively high price.
What are you giving up? I mean, are you giving up a future first? Because if it's a future first for the rest of the league, then it's a future first and then another premium pick, I would say. If you're the Bengals, are you giving up Mason Graham? That's the one I threw out there on social media. Who says no? Mason Graham for Trey Hendrickson straight up. Doesn't really make sense for the Browns, and I'm not sure it makes sense for the Bengals.
I don't know how it doesn't make sense for the Bengals.
Yeah. Oh, hey, would you like the 5th pick in the draft and another future first for a guy you don't want to pay? And, by the way, he's in his early 30s. Yeah, I'd love... No, you know what? That's... I'm going to need more from you. Even if there is a Browns tax, I'd like to point out to our buddy James, the people in Cincinnati, just because the Bengals leak things in reports doesn't mean it's true. Mm-hmm. Like, the Bengals can tell everyone, well, we really just want a future first, as much as they want. Look at the history of guys who are 30-plus, edge rushers, wide receivers, basically even quarterbacks, some guys who are good quarterbacks, not great quarterbacks. Look at those guys who are going into the final year of guaranteed money, and look at what they get traded for. Very, 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 very rarely, unless you were like the Myles Garretts of your position, do those guys get traded for anything of consequence, let alone a future first and a current first.
And so the Bengals are trying to offer up that idea is that he's not Myles Garrett, he's not TJ Watt, but he's in that next tier below. He's in the Micah Parsons, Max Crosby tier. I mean, he did lead the league in sacks last year. He's been very, very productive over the previous few years. So, like, if you're trying to make that argument, We were talking previously with Myles Garrett in February that it was going to be 2 first-rounders, and that was the starting price. I actually don't think the Bengals are too far off if they don't want to pay Trey Hendrickson. It's just at this point, it's an awful time of the season to start ponying up a big asking price.
They might have been able to get like a second and something of value, maybe 2 seconds.
They started this back in February or March and really was shopping him around, especially around the time that Myles Garrett was being shopped around. Like, think about the teams that are off the table now. Bills went out there and got Joey Bosa, so like they're not in that discussion. They were in there for Myles Garrett. The Eagles were in there for Myles Garrett in that discussion. Lions still could be in play. They really could be, and it wouldn't surprise me if they end up being the one. But a lot of the teams that we were talking about for Myles Garrett have taken themselves away, and so you're really only dealing with a couple teams that'd be willing to pony up that type of price.
So that's not even the dumbest thing that people have just bought into and run with the Bengals this week. Because I would like to point out that last night, in multiple instances, we saw Joe Burrow play a fair amount of that preseason game, and we saw multiple, oh, God, you're about to get hurt moments in that game.
Did you see a Shedeur play?
I did see. Although I got to be honest with you.
Shedeur's making it cool.
Shedeur pulled it off better than Joe did.
Well, I mean, that's why Shedeur is Shedeur. I've told you before, though, people think that's a bug in Shedeur's game. He thinks it's a feature.
Yeah.
He genuinely thinks his ability to escape out while doing that is something that's good, while the rest of the league looks at what happened with Joe Burrow, and they think that's always going to be the outcome.
Joe also thought it was a feature last night. I would like to point out the same people who have said, I see some logic here. In playing Joe Burrow and the starters in the preseason were the same people dirtying their skivvies last night, watching almost on the brink of collapse the entire Bengals season last night.
Well, that offensive line didn't have a chance, and so it's interesting. I don't know what you do if you're Zach Taylor. In that moment, I take him out. But like the problem that he has is that Joe Burrow's expressed, kind of like Joe Flacco in wanting to do some of the joint practices, like he loves the reps. He's expressed he wants to play in these games. And so how does it work for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, where Mahomes is able to play in these games and Andy Reid is able to make this all work, and it's kind of coming back in style? But with the Bengals and Joe Burrow last night, it just looked like it was the furthest thing from what should be happening.
I think Zach Taylor acquiescing to Joe about playing in the preseason, to me, is just further proof at how he just doesn't have command of the situation. Like, you're acquiescing on something that there are very few things I think that a coach should just be able to unilaterally make the decision on. Playing in the preseason makes sense to me because, listen, is the decision, by the way, they think you can just go, yeah, we're not doing that. Because Joe's always going to want to play. Like, he is. He is the ultimate competitor. He's always going to want to play. He's never going to be thinking about what's best for the team in November, and that's Joe, where the head coach has to be the head coach.
But Joe's listened in years past, and they've had slow starts because of it, and I feel like he's frustrated by that, and I feel like he thinks they just missed out on the postseason last year because of their slow start, and he's trying to fix that.
So I think, listen, they have had slow starts. I think it is absolutely speculative that they've had slow starts because of the way they've handled the preseason specifically. When you've got joint practices, when you've got regular practices. Like, Joe's also not been healthy in camp several of the times the last few years. That probably has a bigger impact on Joe starting slow than just, didn't play in that preseason game where we almost got the guy killed.
Yeah, but when you're Joe and you're missing the postseason by such a small margin the way that he did, you're trying to come up with anything that'll tell you that I can get that half game, I can get that game advantage back.
And I always want to respect the athletes want to play. That is why these guys are who they are. It's where the organization, which already we've demonstrated what a BS organization that is, or the head coach has to step up and go, I get you. Here are the other changes we're going to make that are going to get us started the right way in September. And hey, Joe, just as a quick reminder, even if we start slow, it's an 18-week season. We can be a little patient with this thing, even if it's hard for you to be patient. Last night was proof positive of how harebrained the whole preseason was, and Zach Taylor acquiescing to it. Like, there's one way Zach Taylor gets fired.
You can do it right. You can. I know you can, because Andy Reid has been able to do it right. So, like, there are ways, but last night wasn't it. And the moment that you saw it wasn't it, and he was getting murdered back there, that's when they needed to step in.